Title belts to Hall of Fame. Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, cry. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Wildfire Tommy Rich. And guys, we've made it. It is our Christmas special. And we had a lot of fun with the Thanksgiving special. I know you guys enjoy Thanksgiving. How do you guys enjoy Christmas? Are you fans?
Oh, yes, sir. Hey, this weekend I was in Sandy Hook, West Virginia, which the Dangerous Conversation gives us a good plug. We had a good turnout, and Santa Claus was there, man. I mean, we had a real good weekend up there at Sandy Hook, Kentucky, man. It was a really nice weekend. Fans turned out. They had a big parade through town. I mean, yeah, it was very festive. All excited about Christmas being here.
Oh, Gene, you know I love Christmas, I love the holidays and everything. And I really love, like I said, I thought we was going to make some money on Tommy, and he's done went out and bypassed me and you and done got his own Santa Claus suit and dressed up without us, didn't he?
He did. But, folks, if you haven't seen it yet, go on the Dangerous Conversations Facebook and check out Tommy Claus on there promoting that Sandy Hook show. That was a lot of fun.
That's Wildfire Claus.
But it's, to get that Santa Claus outfit and just be, I'm not a very festive person anyway, But no, it was good. It's a good weekend. The kids had a great time, and it was just a good show. And hey, I'm excited for Christmas.
Me too. I'm glad we've made it. And yeah, Doug, maybe Tommy's out here doing these shows every weekend. Maybe he'll invite us along one of these days. We might actually get to do something.
Hey, Tommy's hustling now.
Hey, Gene, now that you said that, we've got an invitation to Sistersville, West Virginia. Doug said he wouldn't fly over West Virginia again. Now, so you called him out, Gene. I didn't even have to do it.
and actually, Gene, he's not. Tommy's telling the truth. He called me earlier and said, "Would you wrestle in Sistersville, West Virginia?" So the guys would like to book me and you there. And I said, "Man, you've got to be playing with me." And he said, "No." And he said, "Really, would you go?" And I said, "Man," I said I would never go back to West Virginia. I said, "Now you're saying go back to the same town." Tommy had a good line. He said, "Well, you got to remember, Doug." He said, "That's been so long ago, everybody's probably dead that was there then." He said, "But then again, the guy that was in jail with us, he'll probably be the mayor now." And I said, "Well, you're probably right." But anyway, so now that is on the horizon. And I just told him, I said, "We'll have to think on this one."
You heard it first, people.
Hey, and Richie runs that Wildfire Championship Wrestling. He asked me, he's the one that asked me about if Doug would go there. And I said, "What?" I said, "You heard him say he wouldn't even fly over West Virginia." And I said, "But I'll ask him." I said, "We're doing a show tonight." And I said, "I'll ask him." And it wasn't 5 minutes, Doug, he called me. And I said, "Well," I said, "I got a question for you." I said, "Would you rather?" But Doug never did give me a yes or no, though. He just said, he talked about it. And so we ain't committed yet. But maybe we'd like to be back in old Sistersville, West Virginia.
That might be one of those deals, Gene, where if I even do consider going, you'd have to go.
I got.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I hope you go, because I got a feeling Tommy would stick me in a dark Patriot mask and try to trot me out there and tell everybody the Dark Patriot's back. Not only is the Memphis Mafia back, but the Dark Patriot's back. He's just fatter than he ever was.
I don't know about that now.
Well, you hadn't seen me recently, but no, we breaking news: Memphis Mafia Tour 2025 might be coming to Sistersville, West Virginia. If you want to see it, go on the Facebook page and let us
That's where
know.
the gangsters started. That's where the legend started.
That's right.
There in Sistersville, West Virginia. Yeah.
Well, you tell that promoter they got to have bail money ready if they're booking you there. You're going to have to double your fee to have bail money just to make sure.
Shoot, I think for me to go, there's going to have to be a helicopter sitting on top of the building.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was that. Yeah, that's a bad time. But hey, if it was to happen, it'd be a heck of a time.
Well, you know, Tommy, there is one other alternative besides putting me in a Dark Patriot mask. If we can't get Dangerous Doug Gilbert to team with you in West Virginia, we might be able to get Rick Jones to show up and tag with you if we ask nicely.
Hey, now that Rick Jones, I think he was over. I think that's who I should have worked as more, Rick Jones. I don't think that's just been once or twice. But you know what? The funniest thing, I saw that picture, and I remember one of the guys saying, "Doug, do you not want to be use your own name tonight?" I said, "Well, what do y'all have wrote down?" And they said, "Well, we have Rick Jones, which it was supposed to be Rick Jones against this guy." I said, "No, Rick Jones sounds good," and so that's where Rick Jones come about. I should have just called Tommy Rick James, shouldn't I? We'd have a heck of a tag team.
I was being say Rick Jones. I never, but I like the story. Yeah, I ain't heard that one yet. See, Dougie's got stories. I mean, like when I first started in the business, you know, it went back to, I mean, I knew my dad and Eddie Marlin were friends. And Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin was the tag team champions, you know, in Memphis. And so I used to go on wrestling trips with them. And so I knew Tommy, and then I met shoot Dougie. Eddie was going to Louisville, Kentucky, taking pictures, and Doug was, he wasn't even 11 years old probably. So that's how far we go back. I mean, and it's so cool, the revelations and stuff. I mean, you know, I used to work at the gas station next to where the Tommy would meet the guys, and they'd go to the next town, and you know, Tommy'd come in, and I'd run across, say hey to him, you know. So, you know, we're bonded together. And then, of course, me and Eddie teamed up together and had a lot of good trips together. And then there again, he was about 14 then, and Eddie let him come with me sometime, you know, because Eddie had his business he's taking care of. But anyway, Dougie'd come hang out with me and my wife, Terry Lynn, and I mean, so we've been together for a long time. I mean, tag team champions. Hey, world's most dumbest criminals. And now I'm on the podcast. With y'all. So, hey, man, it's all been chilly, man.
Gene, everything's cool. And like we always say, rate, review, and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. If you want to go on Pro Wrestling Tees, we're going to have the Memphis Mafia T-shirts on there, the Gilbert shirts. Gene, you got a store that's got our stuff on it, right? And everybody can get whatever they want.
Yep, they're there. We got a Dangerous Conversation shirt and a couple different Memphis Mafia designs, so check those out.
But it sounds like, I mean, Tommy's talking about history and everything. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and I mean, I remember watching Tommy when he was starting in the business stuff. And then, you know, like I said, my brother's about 10 years older than me. Then Eddie started in 79. And I was trying to think, Tommy, what did you start in 75, 74?
75, yeah.
75. So
graduated in 74. If you count back that far, yeah.
So you figured
74, but I started in the business like 75, yeah.
So you figure I was like 5 years old, and I was watching Tommy. Then you go on up to 79, and Eddie graduated and he started. And then, like Tommy said, he was with my dad, with Eddie Marlin and Jerry Jarrett and my dad and the history there. And then you go to 79 and my brother, he started. And, and like Tommy says, things come in full circles. I mean, it wound up when he left Georgia and come back here, him and Eddie wound up being partners and they had a great run and everything. And that was great. I got to watch all that and hang out with him. Like Tommy said, I'd spend a lot of the summer with him and his wife, Terry, and I had a great time with that. And they was always really good to me. And what the funny thing, I mean, and the age is not so much difference between all of us, but it's like, I was like a kid compared to them and everything. But I mean, it's like, my brother, Tommy, his wife, like they raised me like I was a kid, but I mean, they, everything, we had great times and everything. I mean, people wouldn't imagine.
My wife might have raised him like a kid, but when he come to me, he was kind of on his own. Yeah.
Well,
I might let him be a little more grown up than he should have been.
Yeah, I think to say I might not have been
me out more than once over that.
Yeah, I was fixing to say it might not have been the perfect raising, but my brother and Tommy done a pretty fair job, I think. But you talking about some great times on the road, Gene. One night we was coming into, which there's 100 stories, but one night, just off the top of my head, we was coming into Memphis. It was on a Friday night, getting ready for them to do TV Saturday morning. Like Tommy said, I was 14, and I don't guess this had anything to do with it. I was just driving, but they was both having a beer. And
had a lot to do with it.
But I was driving, and each of them was having a beer. Just we was all three talking and everything. And all of a sudden, blue lights. Well, still, I don't care what state you're in. You had to be 16 years old to have a driver's license, and I was 14. So the cop walks up to the car, shines a light in the car, and he shines it at me and says, "Give me your driver's license." I said, "I don't have any." And he said, "Well, are they revoked?" I said, No, sir, I don't have any driver's license. And he said, "How old are you?" And I told him how old I was. But that's in the days like we've talked about before in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana.
But let him finish that whole story, though. He ain't finishing the whole story. We riding. Now, Eddie's probably, I couldn't have been, Eddie could have been more than 18 or 19. But he's driving one of them nice plush, back in the day, Chrysler 5th New Yorkers that was plushed out, It was as nice as a Cadillac. And Eddie's in the back. He's had a few beers. And I'm in front. I've had a few beers. And the policeman walks up to the door. And, Doug is big now. But back then, he, little 14-year-old boy on the steering wheel. That don't work too good either. And but anyway, we told him he knew. Doug said, told him something, and then he looked in and checked us out, and
he said this was one of the remarks, Gene. I remember when I told him I didn't have no license. He said he shined the light to Tommy, and Tommy was sitting in the passenger side, and Eddie was sitting in the back. And he shined the light at Eddie, and shined the light at Tommy. He said, "Tommy Rich." And Tommy said, "Yeah." And so he said, and he shined a light at Eddie, and he said, "Eddie Gilbert." And Eddie shook his head, and he said, "I tell you what, if I do what I should do, y'all won't be on TV in the morning, will you?" And that's the exact words. And he said, "Now I want to ask y'all too." And he's talking to Tommy and Eddie. He said, "Why have y'all got him driving?" And they both said, "Well, we've had a couple beers." And they said, "He's 14 years old. I'd rather one of y'all drive than him drive." So they wound up, but that's how it was then. They wound up letting, I think Eddie wound up getting out of the back. I got out of the driver's seat and got in the back, and Eddie got under the wheel and drove us on to the hotel. But it was right outside of Memphis. But we've talked before about us getting stopped, but it's just stories like that, and like me and Tommy leaving the Coliseum, me getting on I-40 and, going, setting the cruise about 90 and people being behind you and you're just trying to get away, and all of a sudden the law stops you and you think, "Oh, man." And then they come up and, give them your license sometimes. Sometimes you didn't, but it wasn't never it wasn't ever any trouble. I mean, that's probably the difference between those days and these days, which these days, if it was watched like it was then, and like I said, 7 out of every 10 homes in Memphis, and I mean, even Louisville, Evansville, Nashville, I mean, everywhere, it was just so strong. The TV was so strong. People will never realize how strong that TV was.
And it goes like that. I mean, that's back during territory times too. Back. I mean, it's like back in Tennessee, they had 3 territories. They had that Knoxville in. They had Nick Goulas. They had this, and then you had that guy Eddie Graham in Florida. I mean, shoot in Texas. I don't know how many promotions there was there. You probably know more of that, Dougie, than I do.
There was. Well, Gene, as far as Texas, big as far as we call territories, there's 3, right? There's the Blanchards, the Von Erichs, and where was the other one? But before I've talked about it. Amarillo, the Funks. Why am I forgetting that? And I should have said that first, but you had the Funks, you had the Von Erichs, and you had the Blanchards. And that was 3.
You had Paul Bosch. You had Paul Bosch that ran Houston.
That's right. You did have Paul Bosch in Houston.
I mean, when you mentioned Mr. Barnett, you missed Paul Bosch. He was a good man and just very respected. Yes, sir.
And guys, we've got a lot of great wrestling cards from Christmas past to talk about, and I know you guys, we've talked about it here before. Wrestling on holidays, especially Thanksgiving, like we talked about before, and Christmas, is always, well, I guess maybe not so much nowadays, but back in the territory days was a really big deal, right? And some really great drawing cards.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was all nostalgic back then. I mean, that's them was the big years.
I'm gonna tell you what, Gene. You know what I remember a whole lot about those years, as far as after I got started and everything. When I was a kid, I just remember I loved having Christmas and being around my family, and then getting to go to a show that night, like when I was a kid before I started working and everything. And I'd get to see all the guys and see Tommy, and I mean all the rest of the guys I really looked up to. But and then after I got started, but even before this, I noticed that Tommy got a lot of presents. Eddie got a lot of presents. My dad got a lot of presents. And I'm not talking about at home. I'm talking about the matches. Right. And but then I noticed after I started wrestling, then actually I finally got a lot of presents. But it was Christmas was, it wasn't about just getting stuff from people, but it was the fans. It was like we're talking about the territory days and everything, and like USWA, CWA, and all that, the territories here and territories in Georgia, all around the United States. But all the guys, like at that point, before it was the national TV and everything, it was your local stars. I mean, it was your local. Like when my wife went with me to Japan, she's went 2 or 3 times now, but she said, it's not like y'all are wrestlers over here. She said, it's more like y'all are movie stars. Well, that kind of hit me in a different way when she said that to me, but it was because people brought us presents. Like in Japan, they'd bring me a present, and they would bring her a present. And it made me think, when you're saying on here about the Christmas stuff and me watching Tommy and my brother and people bringing them presents like they was part of their family and everything. But I mean, they loved them so much and everything. But I mean, it was Christmas presents, and Tommy's one of the only people that I know that's got a birthday in about 8 months out of every year. Have you ever known anybody else like that, Gene?
I haven't. That's
that's and I got to thinking about that. If that's so, if you got 8 birthdays a year, what do they say? A dog's got like every 1 year it's 5 years older or something, or a human's life. What's that saying, Gene? And it's something like that.
5 to 1 or 7 to 1 or something like that. It's
so Tommy had something like a dog's life in those.
Yes, but the Christmas shows, and you go into that, going back, but like, and at first they started doing a Christmas show night, because they knew everybody had Christmas and did their dinners and everything, but then they seen, God, soon as these people open them gills up and eat their dinner, they ready to go get out of the house and go to see some. But it would be like grandmama, granddaddy, their kids, and their grandkids. I mean, it was a family. It was a ritual or whatever the word is. But I mean, it was just, it's unreal. I mean, we were so blessed that folks would turn out like that to see it. And then we got too blessed because they said, dang, we can do that on Christmas Day too. We'll have a Christmas Day show and then a Christmas night show. And the same with Thanksgiving, they did the same thing. But, hey, thank God for the wrestling fans, and thank all of y'all for tuning in, and keep following us and share with your friends. But, yeah, we're so blessed, man. Got Christmas coming in, and just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. But the Christmas shows, yeah, it was, I mean, wrestling's a lot different now. It ain't like when Doug is talking about, or Doug, and going back though. I mean, it was like you'd see 3 generations, 3 families, grandparents, the kids, and the grandkids, and now you don't have that. I mean, it's so that part of the business, man, hey, we're so blessed.
But Gene, I mean, it's like this, and I think you would agree with it, Gene. I mean, if WWE comes to town twice a year, you're probably lucky in a town. But I mean, WWE is like your Disneyland or Disney World, Disneyland, or something like that, where you had. When I'm talking about the territory days, and what we're talking about is you was in that town every week. 52 weeks a year, right? I mean, you're in Memphis that many times, plus you're doing TV, so you might as well say you're there 104. I mean, you're doing TV and working, say, in the Mid-South Coliseum, which everybody's got their thing, I mean, like if you worked up north, it was Madison Square Garden. If you worked in Memphis, it was Mid-South Coliseum. If you worked in Louisville, it was the Louisville Gardens. If you worked like in Boston, it was the Boston Gardens. It was everybody had their venues that they thought that they liked more than not, and everything. But I mean, we can talk about anywhere. Tommy's been everywhere, and I haven't been everywhere, but I've been close to everywhere. I've been some places I probably shouldn't have been. But I mean, there's just so much, and it was so much as far as what we're talking about, local stuff, like in Louisville, all over Kentucky, all over Tennessee, all over Mississippi, all over Arkansas. When you went there in those days and up to the national TV, you was their local stars. Just like I was saying, my wife said it about when I carried Japan with me, how the people like treat you different. Here it was the same way, but it was, I mean, people just really wouldn't understand. I mean, Tommy, you know what I'm trying to say, and Gene, I think you do too. I mean, it was a different.
I was just a part of it this weekend, man. I mean, I was up in Sandy Hook, Kentucky, and Kentucky and Tennessee, and I mean, they can say, the North had their wrestling, which they did, but like. Still, even to today, I mean, like I said, we did the Wildfire Championship Wrestling was in Sandy Hook, Kentucky, and had a big Christmas show. And early in the day, they had a parade, and then we had a big turnout for the wrestling show. I mean, and it was there again. It was like, grandparent or kid. I mean, it was a family show, man, and we got to wrestle in the best place in the world, Tennessee, Kentucky, and all the places. I mean, and West Virginia. I mean, but we wrestled in all them towns. I mean, I never went up north a whole lot, but in the South, I was in Continental and the southern towns. I never went down for Eddie Graham. I never did that gig. Bill Watts, I worked in and out of Bill Watts, and I did some in and out for Eddie Graham too, but the South, man, and you ask anybody today, it's still about the southern wrestling. It's to got the broke in Tennessee, and I hung out with Jackie Fargo. Come on now, me and Eddie, we were the fabulous ones with Jackie Fargo. Come on, it don't get no better than that.
Oh no, and Gene, I think you realize kind of what we're saying. And it's no knock on nowhere else. Everywhere was great, and I'm glad it was. You just look back, and I couldn't tell you a dozen people that didn't come through the South, come through Tennessee, and it was a different era and a different breed. And it was a lot of it was to do with the work style and everything. But you always hear people say different things about Tennessee and the South and everything. But if you looked, everything kind of rotated through here to go other places.
Yeah, you talk about the holiday shows. Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, whichever one, they first with the videos. You know what I'm saying? And they were creative enough, and they were some of the first in on the Christmas and Thanksgiving shows. Tennessee, it bred a lot of good talent, or it brought a lot of good talent through here, came through Tennessee.
And Gene,
I was lucky enough to break in here and was blessed to got to work through the guys that come in.
And Gene, I was fixing to say, I wish we could go back, or you're going through the shows right now and look and see how many people had dressed up as Santa Claus on, like from CWA to USWA to the Rhythm and Blues, Memphis's Rhythm and Blues, I think is what it was called. And there's about 4 shows, and then Power Pro and everything. But I know one thing, you'll sure see Dangerous Doug dressed up as Santa Claus on one of them.
Yes,
and I'm gonna tell you the thing about the thing about that, Gene, was that beard. I was trying to breathe, and I was sucking that hair in my mouth, and it about made me puke. And you would have laughed. We got to the back, and Lawler and some other guys said, "What's wrong with you?" And I thought, "Shoot, I'm about to puke. That's what's wrong with me." But you ought to try to work with that stuff on. You're talking about a Santa Claus suit, but I was like the mean Santa Claus. I think pushed some little kid or something, but you'll laugh when you see it.
Makes you wonder how those Moondogs did it all those years, huh? With those big beards and.
Yeah, there you go. I think theirs was real though. Mine was kind of hung on and going in my mouth.
When I had that one on the other night, that get my mouth. I gagged. Yeah, just doing that interview, I can imagine. Yeah.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
So let me run this by you real quick before we move on, and you can either tell me I'm onto something or I'm way off base. But As far as like the Christmas shows, Christmas is all about, spending time with your family and all that. And, wrestling fans were at those shows, like you said, 52 weeks a year. They're at the wrestling shows. They're there. They're watching you guys. They had, sections of the arena they sat in. Like you could be in the ring and look out there and see, is Ethel over in her section, or is, Joe where he usually is. And really, those wrestling fans with each other and the wrestlers, you've got extended family that you probably don't see 3-4 times a year, or just at maybe Christmas, Thanksgiving, and maybe 4th of July. Those people were hanging out together every week, so it was kind of fitting that you all spend a holiday together, because you're spending the whole year together anyway. It's kind of like you're one big, extended family to some degree, right?
You know what, Gene? That's exactly right, and people would not believe it. I mean, and like for the longest, Tommy was a good guy, and he was so accessible to everybody. Now me, it wasn't not being accessible. Just I was always a heel most of the time, and I thought it was better not to be around the people and everything. And then certain times during mine and Tommy's run, we would work against different guys, and they would kind of swap us around. And like Tommy tell me, come on, let's go out here and sign pictures and take pictures and everything. And I'd listen to him, and I'd wind up going. But you can ask him. It'd be sometimes it'd be like pulling teeth.
I swear to God, I think the same. It'd be like pulling the tooth from him.
But
your first statement though, you said you was a heel most of the time.
Yeah.
You see that, and that's the difference in the business now and the business then. And the heels the bad guys should have got paid more money, because of course in the beginning we didn't even know nothing about selling no pictures. But when that part started, the heels should have got a little extra kickback because we was out doing what we was doing. I get that point, but see the way the business was back then, like Doug is saying, if you was a heel or a bad guy, it's like cowboys and Indians. There's a good guy and there's a bad guy. I mean, and ain't no in between. And the heels now, I mean, hell, everybody goes out and tries to sell a picture. I understand it because it's marketing. I understand it, but we didn't even know nothing about marketing back then. That was just our business. If you was a good guy, and you go out. We wasn't even selling pictures. We was shaking hands, kissing babies, and doing whatever, signing a piece of paper, whatever it was. But you didn't see none of them bad boys doing that, because that was the nature of our business.
But you're talking about, Gene, what got me, and it really got me to seeing things, which I mean, I knew it, but the only thing then when you get in the middle of it, like Tommy say, come on, and we'd go out, and then, man, we did great on gimmicks, and he'd say, see, I told you. But then you would meet people, and man, I met some, and have still to this day got some great friends in Louisville. I've got some great friends in Memphis that I just met from wrestling, and I mean, wound up being friends with them, which I mean, and the fans were all great, but I actually met some great people that have been lifelong friends and everything. And that's what people don't realize. And like you was talking about, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas on here. I want everybody to have a Merry Christmas. I hope everybody loves listening to mine and Tommy's stories while we're talking with you, Gene. And like I said, the reason the reason most of this is so good is because Gene keeps us in line and everything, or me and Tommy could ramble on and off about different things for days. But like I said, I mean, we've met so many different people, and like I said, Tommy carried me out, man. The funny thing, people wouldn't know this, but I mean, I'd say, man, we really got to go out, and he'd say, come on, let's go. So he'd finally get me out there, and we'd take a bunch of pictures and sell a bunch of pictures and meet people. And like you said, Gene, the whole thing, what you said a while ago was about, we said at home at Christmas, then we go out, and then all those people were there Christmas night. And man, it was just a cool time. And I mean, people just, I swear, you need to watch some of the videos, and I think that kind of shows you what I'm talking about. But it's just it's a time that's hard to describe, that that everybody, like I said, or like you said earlier, Gene, that you kind of know people and you know where people sit, and you look and you see people and kind of see the same ones. And then, I mean, you know, when the business is good and when business is better, and sometimes when it's not as good. But I mean, we had great times, and I mean, as far as on the roads, great stories to tell, and I mean, in the buildings, great as far as matches. We can go over matches, and I know we're fixing to do that in a minute. But man, you talk about, like I said, we just want to make sure, myself, Tommy, you also, Jen, I know y'all want everybody to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and everything. And man, we appreciate everybody listening to us.
Yeah, everybody's been great. All the feedback people are giving and spreading the word, and man, we just can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it. So, thank you, folks. And yeah, like
somebody say something about thanks for tuning in. Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Hey, and just reminiscing about this story, man. I'm so glad that my man Gene, the guy, has tuned me in. But Dougie, like I said, we was most famous, dumbest criminals. So, you know, to be on here and getting to tell those stories, and then Gene asking questions that brings back old memories and stuff. You know, I'm getting to be an old man now, so going down memory lane, man, it's really good. And we really appreciate y'all that love it to tune in. Tell your friends about it. Share it. Whatever you got to do, get us on that page.
And like we said, Gene, which I know you got this and you'll go over it at the end of the show and everything, but I think February 1st we're going to be in Arkansas. I think March, I haven't got my book right in front of me, but I think March, either the first Friday or second Friday in March, I think we're going to be in Henderson and somewhere around Nashville on that night before. But I'll get those down for you, and we'll plug those before it gets that time.
Absolutely, we're going to get that in and make sure everybody knows where to come see the Memphis Mafia.
And you know, in May we'll be in Philadelphia, and I'm going to try to do something at least every month with the Memphis Mafia. I think that'd be a good deal.
Man, yeah, that's going to be a big one in Philadelphia. We're going to be talking a lot about that in the coming weeks, and we're going to try to figure out who this mystery partner that Shane Douglas is bringing for y'all. Team Extreme going to be coming after the Memphis Mafia. We got to get to the bottom of that. But
I know who he is, but I can't tell you.
Well, kayfabe, take it easy. We don't know. It's a mystery.
Yeah, I was going to say, he knows more than me then.
I don't think Dougie cares or I care.
No.
You know, we're just ready to get some Shane Douglas. I want a piece of him anyway.
He's got a smart mouth on him, that Shane Douglas.
Oh, I was up there with him at CW. He got an attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my brother taught him about everything he knew, but not everything my brother knew.
Oh, no wonder he's a smart ass then. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, if that's where he gets it from, he's good at what he does.
That's all right, Doug. Tommy jumps out of that balcony on his butt. He's going to know if something doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, he'll know something happened to him.
If I jump off that balcony on him, you going to know it's up.
You know what he's going to think? He's going to think one of those drones that's up there just fell on him.
Yeah,
a drone will jump off on him before I will.
You'll have to do a whole podcast about that when it gets done.
There you go.
Well, all right, guys, we're going to go back to Christmas Day, 1980, CWA, at the fairgrounds in Nashville, Tennessee. Opening match that night saw Ricky Morton defeat Danny Davis. Now, you talk about merch money. That's a guy that figured it out. That guy's buying IROC Z Camaros with picture money back in the day. He knew what was up.
Yeah, Danny did. Danny had and people don't believe stuff like this, and this is, I mean, I've got no reason to make it up, and I mean, you can ask him about it. We'll get him on here and ask him, but they had an apartment, and I mean, it did have a bed in it, and they could sleep in it and everything, but the rest of it was just full of merchandise and everything, and that's hard for people to believe, but Danny had like life-size posters, but I mean, like, Tommy was the first one I think that actually had like life-size stuff from the magazines and all that different stuff and everything. But I mean, Danny figured it out, and he figured the merchandise deal out. And they had like that, you know, they had two apartments. One was in, I think, Pensacola or somewhere like that in Florida, and then I think this one that had all the merchandise was like in Birmingham. But I mean, they had a little apartment, like a little fishy efficiency apartment, but it was just full of merchandise. I mean, and people would not believe that, and that is the truth. And like I said, we'll get Danny on here and let him tell you about it, and he can tell you more than I can. But I remember hearing that and then going by one day, and I thought, my goodness, look, this guy is really freaking got it figured out.
Second match on that card, got a singles match, fought to a time limit draw. It was Gypsy Joe taking on Tommy Gilbert. Boy, don't you know that was a hard-hitting match, guys.
No.
You ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. And neither one of them would have told the other one to let up for anything.
That's right.
No, I mean to say, yeah. Stubborn and stubborner. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But that would have been in their element there too, though, because that's the way they did. I mean, back in the day, man, I'm so blessed. I'm glad I didn't have to go through. And they just thought it was fun to go out there and do that. You know, I mean, yeah, please give me a break. Just hit me easy. But
and you know what? I mean, Gene, that Danny, we was just talking about Danny Davis. He's the same way. He loved that. I watched him and Gypsy go out there a bunch of nights, and they just freaking chopped and beat each other like to death. And they'd come back, and they would be red chested, red stomach, red arm, shoulder. And I thought, my goodness, my match is going to be nothing like this. But I always thought, now, I want everything to be believable, and a lot of people I work with and everything, I want everything to be snug and stiff and everything. But I seen those guys just beat each other night after night after night. I remember I was working the program with Brian at that time, and I told Brian, I said, gosh, I said, did you see that? And he said, boy, I'm glad me or you either one ain't got to work with them. And I thought, well, shit, you too.
See, I'm glad I didn't have to work against that, but me and Johnny in Continental, when you talk about he had them apartments there, that's when everybody started selling merchandise. And but me and my cousin Johnny Rich, we worked against them in Continental, and you know, I mean, it was but it was nice. There was nightmares then, of course.
But that's still when. That's still when they was heels, though, right, Tommy? That was before
they were the heels. Yeah. I mean, it was babyface. But that's when everybody started selling the merchandise, though, and they, you know, even the heels was out selling then. You know, before that, you know, the heels didn't do it, but like when you was talking about Danny, I remember that, you know, because we wrestled them as nightmares for Fullers.
That was a heck of a feud. There was a lot of we're gonna have to talk about that at length sometime, because there was a lot of things that went on in that feud. There was people getting tarred and feathered, and masks coming off, and heads getting shaved, and just a lot of fun stuff.
And like you, I mean, Dougie said, the merchandise, that's when it was hot back then too. And I mean, even the heels, that's when the heels started selling their stuff too. But it was, you know, it was a different, man. It was good.
Well, let me ask you this before we move past that. You know, Doug, you probably remember when Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony was on the show. He talked about how well Danny Davis was doing selling merch when they were feuding, and he told us about how he got to an arena one night, and Danny pulled out a case of beer and was like, here you go, brother. You helped me make a lot of money last night.
Yeah.
Was that something you did, Tommy, or like did you guys ever do that when you were baby faces?
No, sir. Danny's better than me then. I always drank it before I got there.
You might have good intentions, but, you know.
Yeah, I might have got a case, but it didn't make it.
I think here's the thing. I think during the time that me and Tommy actually was going out and taking pictures and everything, the guys that we was working with was on guarantees like we was. And I'm not saying that we still probably shouldn't have given them some money or anything, but I'm going to tell you, Gene, we used, this is the funniest thing. When me and Tommy did take pictures and stuff, our logic was to keep all of our both of our checks, send them home, and live off of our gimmick money. And if you could do that, you was doing great.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So you can imagine how much money Danny Davis saved, because he was kind of a tight ass. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which that's smart. Don't get me wrong. That's smart. But Danny saved a lot of money because, like Dougie said, and I didn't know he had an apartment with gimmicks in one and the other two. But, I mean, that's when, that shit, some boys, you'd make more money selling your stuff than you would from your paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Because that's when you first started selling merchandise, it was just so hot.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of guys say that there was weeks where they made more with merch than they did off. And then it's not that they weren't guaranteed good money. It's just that was, like you said, it's just how much merch.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it was just hot. Cause, I mean, like when I first started wrestling, they sold wrestling programs. That's all. And if they'd known they could sell pictures of us and have our ass out there signing, they'd been richer. I mean, but that's what I mean. I mean, nobody knew nothing. Like now, that's a big market thing. But back then, nobody knew nothing about that.
Oh yeah, intermission looks like a flea market at most shows now. Heels, babies, everybody's out there. It's.
Oh yeah, everybody. Oh yeah, you ain't lying. Everybody's out there now. No disrespect to Vince Jr., but that there's no good guy, no bad guy no more. Everybody's in betweeners or whatever. Right. I mean, it's everybody gets out there, and which you can't blame them.
And here's the thing though, Gene. I guess my logic, not that it was right and it wasn't right, but I always thought the less the people saw you, that this is one thing that Lawler told me, Brian, one time. He said, do you guys think that the people ever saw Elvis before he went on stage? And I mean, just think of that for a minute. Now, what we're saying is, I'm not saying all this logic of mine or what I've heard from different people was right, but just in my head was the less people saw you, the more you meant. Except, when they saw you in the ring, if they didn't get a chance to see you, except when you was going to the ring, you was in the ring, and you was working, and you was on TV, if that was their only act, not that you was better than everybody else, but you, I don't know how you would say this, but you needed to be better than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to be the biggest star that you could be without being a prick, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and to me,
it means something when you come through the curtain.
It made you not just one of the regular guys that they saw out there signing pictures and begging, and that's the thing. And Tommy never did this or nothing, and I didn't either. But I mean, I've seen guys out just look like, I told Tommy, I said, man, it looks like you're begging people for money, and I hated that. I thought, just that looked. I mean, it was cool. It was cool to go out and me and Tommy did this. We might not go out for a week or two and then go out one time and sign a bunch of stuff and take pictures of people and everything. But you wind up, Gene, I mean, I think that made you look so much better than going out there and just being like one of the regular guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember going to shows and seeing guys that were just hanging out from the time the doors open till the matches started. They're sitting out in the crowd and people know them, like it's just, after a while, it's like their cousin or something. Like, oh yeah, there's so.
Exactly. And one of the things I said to Tommy, we was talking about something one time. I said, somebody asked me something about being happy. I said, yeah, dude, I'm in a good mood. Well, what do you mean? And they said, oh, well, we're not. It was whatever they had made what they wanted to or whatever. And I said, well, whose fault is that? I mean, we all made our own deals. Tommy made his, I made mine. We might have been in the same room while we was making them, but we all made our own deals. If you wasn't going to be happy, why would you have made a deal for? I mean, that's the way I look at it. And I think if you ask Tommy, he'd tell you that he wouldn't have done something if the deal wasn't right, if he didn't think it was right.
Yeah, we walked out on a few of them, ain't we, boss?
Well, yeah, they've been a few of them that we actually thought the deals was right, and we still left. But I mean, not that that's a good thing, but I mean, you still got all the terms. It ain't so much if you're getting exactly what you want for money. Everything else has got to be right also, and it's business. I mean, and I think we've always done pretty good business with everybody. I mean, you'll have this one or that one say this or that, but that's cool. I mean, it's a business. Look, everybody, there's one thing they aren't going to say. We've tried to hold them up or whatever. I say that, I guess, except in Sistersville, but nobody else anywhere, I think, would say that.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to uswapodcast.com.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Sonny King defeated the French Angel with Jimmy Hart. And so French Angel, that's Frank Morrell, right?
Frank Morrell, you ain't lying. Hey, let me tell you about Sonny King. Well, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
No, I ain't going to say this. Remember that Sonny King story, though? That's the night I was with Roddy Piper, and he left my brother standing on the side of the road, and we come back against traffic. But anyway, we'll tell that whole story another time because it'll take a minute. But, yeah, Sonny King sucked that lollipop. I love Sonny King.
Sonny was the one that got stabbed behind the Louisville Gardens, right, Gene?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wild story.
And then Frank, the thing about the French Angel, Frank Morrell, he rode with me a lot of places and everything with me and Tommy, and he was my golf teacher, and that come back to haunt him one day. We was playing golf, and he was saying, Dougie, just swing like this, and he was showing me how to swing while I swung, and he was standing a little bit too far in front of me, and I sliced the ball, and it hit him right in the side. He wasn't about 20 yards from me, and it knocked him up in the air, and he was running around the green holding his side, and we was like luckily we was on the 18th hole, but he was running around the green holding his side, and like I said, when the ball hit him, it knocked him up in the air, and he was running around holding his side, and I was just looking at him, and I mean, because I was kind of freaked out, and he looked at me and he said, Dougie, what the hell are you looking at? I said, Frank, are you okay? He said,
He showed up at the matches with a big old bruise on his face.
He said, hell no, I'm not okay. And by the time we got to the matches, he had a spot on his side, like right by his ribs. It looked like a softball that was popping out of the side of his stomach. And but he wound up telling me that afternoon, he said, now, Dougie, it's not your fault, it's my fault. He said, what have I always told you? Don't get in front of anybody when they're hitting the ball. But he was trying to make sure I was doing so right and doing it. He kind of got in front of me, and I hit him. But like I said, that ball was going so hard, it knocked him up in there. And, Frank was a big man.
Yes.
and it knocked him up. But he was like on his tippy toes, hopping around the green, going, oh, oh, oh. And all I could do was look at him. And I know I was smiling because I was about to laugh, but I was going to make sure it didn't hurt him because I thought, how am I going to pick him up to get him out of here and everything? But you talking about funny. Old Frank was my buddy. I really liked old Frank.
Oh, yeah, he was in Georgia as a French Angel, man. Yeah, old Frank.
And you know, and Tommy and Eddie drew a bunch of money with him and Phil Hickerson. He was Phil's partner as the spoiler and everything. And Frank was just a good worker. I mean, he was just a good, solid worker, wasn't he, Tommy?
Yeah, and that's right. I forgot about that, the spoiler that with him and Phil. That's right. And then worked against them. That's right.
And do you remember that, Gene? Or have you watched any of that? That was some great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I was, when I was watching wrestling in real time, I first knew him as a referee, and then later I got to go back and see tapes of him as, the spoiler and the angel and got to see him wrestle. But I originally just remember him as being the referee with he would try to wear those bow ties. Bless his heart, he didn't have a neck. He was just a head on a torso, and those little bow ties were hanging on for dear life, because he didn't have a neck to tie them around hardly.
Oh, yeah, that was Frank.
But by all accounts, a good guy from everything I've ever heard. So it's cool y'all have fun
great.
about him.
Hey, a great guy. He was a great guy.
Other than that, I'm going to tell you one story, though, real quick.
Okay.
Frank Burrell. You remember Brother Wayne G?
I do. Yes, sir.
Dwayne Peel.
Dwayne Peel. Yeah. 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 Memphis hero. Anyway, but they Frank and Buddy both though they were the same. Like we'd show up, they'd come in they polyester suits and shit, be styling and profiling, wasn't Ric Flair stuff, but back in them days that was Ric Flair stuff. We'd show up in sweatpants and stuff, and Frank and Buddy both would say, man, you can't dress like them folks out there, so But it was like you're supposed to dress nice, but that was the nostalgia back then. Which all of the older guys, they all dress, nice. Yeah. I mean, whether it was even Tommy. I mean, like me, I'm showing up a pair of shorts and a T-shirt or whatever, and not think nothing about it. And especially since I moved to the beach, I really don't think nothing about it. But Tommy, he be in his cowboy boots, had the blue jeans on and a cowboy shirt. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Eddie Marlin have his little dress breeches on, the short sleeve dress shirt or what. But everybody, they all dress. That was the thing, which I guess that's good. But back then, yeah, I just remember that about Frank. He always dressed sharp. And so did Buddy Wayne, too, though. Buddy Wayne to tell you quick, you show him at one of his shows, and you wasn't dressed, you was underdressed for him. He'd tell you real quick, not that you gave a shit, but he'd tell you real quick that, hey, you need to dress a little better than that,
What about you and Bobby Eaton? They have y'all wearing sport coats and them fleece breeches and all that?
Yeah, me and Bobby both.
Had y'all in fleece breeches and some pony beers, didn't they?
Yeah, pony beers. God, me in Tupelo, Mississippi. Jerry told me, he said, you need to gain some weight. He said, drink beer and eat cheese. I started drinking. So yeah, you ain't got to work no way. Just drink beer and eat cheese. You just ain't nothing about working now.
Damn, Gene, that's a hell of a trainer there, ain't it?
Yeah.
Hey, I started. Hey, me and Bobby Eaton started out leaving from Nashville, Tennessee, going to Tupelo, Mississippi. I think it's 240 miles, maybe, or whatever it was, and we started out drinking 8-pack apiece. By the time that stuff was over, making Tupelo, Mississippi, we were splitting a case apiece. That's 6 8-pack. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we was really on that weight gaining thing, you know. But, yeah, it was just different back then, yeah.
But I mean, think about that, Gene. Think you're talking about Tommy. You're talking about Bobby Eaton. I mean, you're talking about people like Dennis Condrey, Phil Hickerson. Listen to all those guys that I'm talking about that can freaking work with anybody and draw money and tear the houses down. I mean, that's just the names that you're going over is just amazing.
Yeah, some of the best to ever do it. You mentioned Bobby Eaton, so this match here, Bill Dundee and Coco Ware defeated Bobby Eaton and Jimmy Hart, actually in a tag team match here. I'm sure we had something that led to this on Christmas night, Jimmy having to get in the ring, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you had something that led to it. Probably somebody didn't show up or they done fired somebody, probably, right, Tommy?
Yeah. Or they might have had some kind of angle worked into it, but it was, that's back in the Christmas shows. You made everybody happy.
Good baby face finishes.
Yeah, so I don't remember the match, but I can imagine Jimmy and Bobby being together. That'd be a hell of a match.
Check out, you're talking about send them home happy. Check out this main event, y'all. In the main event, Tommy Rich pinned Tojo Yamamoto. What a way to end the show.
See, I told you it was a good, entertaining night. Yeah. So that was the main event.
Hey, I bet you there was some selling going on that night for Tommy.
Yeah.
He grabbed his eye. I'd hit him in the bed and he'd grab his eye. That's kind of funny, though, ain't it? Hey, no, Tojo, no, sir, I love Tojo to death, man. Some people don't like him, and probably a lot, didn't, but Tojo, he dropped as far, well, I knew it, well, I didn't know him, and I didn't even know this about him, though, but he's the one that brought me into business, and I have some love, and I have some hate for him, you know. So we wasn't the best, you know. It ain't like me and Doug as brothers for life. He was my trainer, and so, but he taught me a lot, you know. And Jared, I used to go and see, you know, and of course Tojo and Jared was teamed together, and Jerry would sell, and Tojo come in and do stuff, and but you know, it was a good education. He taught me a lot. He took me to that guy. He taught me how to make pepper steak. And he took me to the rice store, to the Japanese store. I bought a rice cooker, and he got me a 25-pound bag of rice. You know how long a 25-pound of rice lasts? I thought it was a rib. It was a rib, evidently, but I didn't eat rice like he did either. But I got the rice cooker. The shit was good. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't eat it like that.
Hey, Gene, what have we learned on here tonight? Tojo was like Mr. Miyagi, and Tommy was like the Karate Kid. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. But I'm gonna tell you what. Like in this business, especially when we started, it was all about selling. And I can remember being, and Jared sent me to Nick Goulis's territory. You know, my first thing, he didn't want to work in Memphis because he didn't want folks to see me. And so him and Nick they were partners or whatever they was. But anyway, me and Tojo went to Birmingham, Alabama, and worked against the Carl von Steiger, and I think it was Otto von Heller. But Carl von Steiger, he was really a cool guy. But they busted my head open, and and it just, the angle got over, and we carried it. From there we went to Chattanooga. And Tojo did. He taught me a lot, man. You know, a lot of people didn't like him. Of course, sometimes I didn't like him either. I'd ride in that Lincoln with him. I'll never forget, because he'd say, you got to know how to sell. And like he'd tell me to put that little mirror in the front down, right? Like the cosmetic mirror on the car. Put it down, and it'd be nighttime, and them lights would be on, and he'd stick his finger on my ear, and he'd say, "Sell." I thought, what the hell are you talking about? I said, and I'd try to make a face, and then he'd grab my ear real hard, and then he'd say, "That's selling." And that's what he taught Jerry Jarrett. I mean, and that was the art of our business back then, too, I think. I mean, because people believed in what we were doing.
Hey, Gene.
Yeah.
Hey, Gene, what do you think them people that come down the road beside them and was watching that thought?
Oh, my gosh. They're still telling that story.
Hey, then they turned on TV on Saturday morning and they said, "Hey, there he is. He's selling."
Doug, do you remember us sitting in that hotel room recording a podcast in Jackson, and Tommy demonstrated that on me? He grabbed my ear and said, "Sell."
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. So you know the
After it's over with, I was like,
right.
"Tommy, it's an audio podcast. You didn't have to really, you didn't have to really do it."
Well, he didn't have to do it to me. I had to show you how he did it.
I finally learned to sell, though. It was a good lesson.
Yeah. Can't nobody say you didn't.
That's right. So,
hey, that's why Tommy started doing that stuff to me. I was wondering why he had me pull that mirror down. He's grabbed my ear for.
Hey, G.
I thought he was just messing with me. He was serious. Yeah.
G.
Yes, sir.
I got a story, but I'm gonna save this one for the next show. But ask Dougie. He ever been pulled over by a police car with a guy driving it with no license.
Yeah, we probably need to save that
Marking this down.
Oh yeah, we're saving this one. This is a good. But one night, Doug and his buddies was on the side of the road, and I pulled them over driving a police car, and they had a license in 5 years. Yeah. Oh yeah, I got a story. You got to remember this one, but we'll tell this one on another episode.
There we go. I made a note of it, but that's a teaser for you folks. Check
I was
back
fixing
soon.
to say,
You're gonna hear that one.
Gene will be on Dixie Highway in Louisville, Kentucky.
And you know these guys always deliver. Whenever they tease a story, it always comes through.
There was a lot of shit going out the windows, all I know. I won't tell you how mad that was.
Hey, and I about jumped out the window myself.
Oh, and somewhere Wahoo McDaniel shed a tear on the side of the road as you threw stuff out. But.
The chief, God bless. Merry Christmas, Wahoo.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and Dougie knows Wahoo, too. Yeah, Wahoo. I love Wahoo. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting under a picture he gave to my wife, right, that was framed up and everything. He gave to my wife. Yeah,
that must have been when he was young, because when I knew him, he was an old prick. So
he was always sour. Now I didn't say he was a hell of a guy. Oh, he went off and left. He went out one time. And I'll tell you, hey, I love the chief. We wrestled. Used to you do Atlanta TV, then you do Columbus TV, and you'd have to go to the show that night. Well, we did Atlanta TV. I was with Wahoo. We did Columbus TV, and we're supposed to go to Gainesville, Georgia that night, and that was like the other side. It was like Carrollton was close. But anyway, long story short, is we got done, and we come down, and he says, "Hurry up." He's one of them moves like Doug was talking about. Anyway, I stopped. I'm signing some autographs because that was my job. When you was a baby face, you always stop and sign the autographs. And so anyway, I looked up, that some bitch, excuse me, but he done went off and left. So I had to catch I caught a flight from Columbus, Georgia, back to Atlanta, and Terry Lynn picked me up and took me to Gainesville. And anyway, he'd give me a little package. He got me a little package or something. Anyway, I won't say what it was. But anyway, I got to dad, and it wasn't fun to me because I might not have whooped his ass, but I thought, dang, that was just mean. Anyway, he told me, he said, "You don't owe me nothing for that stuff." But Yeah, he was. Oh, wow, he was quite the cat. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'd heard Gene, everybody in his younger days, say how cool he was and he liked to party and have a good time and everything. But I run into him in his office days when he was with WCW, and he wasn't the nicest fella. But I mean, I shouldn't say nothing bad about him. He was just your guy that had been in the business for a long time, that had been over and drew a ton of money, but then he'd got in an office position and was just kind of sour. And like how Tommy talks about how nice he was and great to be around.
But you're right. He could be sour too, though. I mean, that was a sour note I was talking about. Yeah, then. I mean,
just when I was around him, it just seemed like he was always sour. I thought, man, how can everybody talk so good about this guy? But I mean, he got older too, and too, like, I mean, as far as in the business then, you know, it was so much politics as far as the booker, and they were scared the booker was fixing to be fired, and if the booker was fired, he wouldn't have had a job. And I understand that, but I'd heard everybody tell all the cool stories, so I thought I'd get around him and he'd be real cool, but he wasn't kind of like that with anybody at that point.
Oh yeah, but he wasn't ever. He wasn't. You know, I mean, he was Wahoo. He was just Wahoo's what he was. I mean, but it's like he played for the Jets, man. I mean, he'd tell me stories about that. You know, I mean, I hung out with him. Me and him was tag champions, but even on his happy day, he wasn't the happiest camper in the world. And
did you ever know Tommy worked as part Indian one time, Gene?
I didn't know that.
Did you not? Yeah. They said he was from Slapahoe tribe.
Slapahoe. That's next to the Bigfoot tribe. Yeah.
I just learned all kinds of stuff about Tommy. Was Santa Claus. He was a full-blooded Italian. He was Indian. He's been Indian. Everything.
Shit, yeah. He's the only thing. I ain't never heard nobody call him like they call Ricky Morton, Cowboy Ricky Morton. I ain't never heard nobody call Tommy Cowboy Tommy Rich. But now I have seen him, and I think it was Brickhouse Brown riding down the road together, both of them with cowboy hats on, and I got a kick out of that.
Oh, I ain't never wore no cowboy hat now. Come on. I have, yeah. I don't remember being Brickhouse.
Is that what Robert Fuller was calling him, Bunkhouse Brown? I always got a kick out of that.
Oh, man. I don't know. I passed him one day and looked at him. I had to take a double take.
So we're not going to go through the whole card, but we're gonna hit a couple of more things here because we had a lot to talk about and we really didn't talk about many of these Christmas shows. But here's an instance like Tommy referred to earlier, where in Georgia we had an afternoon Christmas show and we had a nighttime Christmas show. So I want to talk about Tommy's two matches and see what you think about this Christmas he had here, Doug. So Christmas of 1981, Columbus, Georgia, at the Municipal Auditorium, in the main event, Big Red and Tommy Rich defeated the Masked Superstar and the Super Destroyer by disqualification. Now, I was always a big fan of Masked Superstar and Super Destroyer. I've seen footage of Big Red. What can you tell us about Big Red?
I think it sounds kind of hot, Gene. I thought you was going to say you'd seen a lot of footage of Big Red. I remember Big Red. Big Red was here, wasn't he, Tommy?
Yeah.
Remember when he worked in Tennessee? Do you not remember Big Red, Gene?
I've seen some, but not a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I think just Tennessee, maybe Georgia. I mean, he didn't know.
He had like what on your face, like the little dots. What was it, Tommy? You know, freckles. Yeah, but he was like red. I mean, he was really red looking and everything, but he's a big old guy. I remember him hearing he was a super nice guy.
Happy-go-lucky, yeah. Yeah, Big Red, yeah, him. I mean, he did. I mean, he worked a lot in Georgia. I'm not sure. I think he might have been from Georgia, but I would swear to goodness on it. But, yeah, he was a real nice fella, happy-go-lucky man. I mean,
big old guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you wrestled twice on this show, Tommy. You wrestled a bounty match where you defeated the Masked Gladiator. We don't know who that is. And then the very next match, you come back out, you and Big Red defeat Masked Superstar and the Super Destroyer. Then you got to take off to the Omni in Atlanta for an evening show. After you've wrestled 2 times Christmas Day, on the evening show, you got to go out and wrestle Abdullah the Butcher, and you get the victory by disqualification.
You know what that was, don't it? If it had been any of the other guys, they knew they had to pay them twice. They knew I was just young and dumb, and I'd just go do what they told me to do. Nah, hey, but back then, that's the way you did it. I don't remember, having to wrestle twice on that show, but I can imagine them doing it. And I don't know if I got plussed any or not, but the big show was at the Omni, and they come back and wrestling Abbey, yeah.
Well, you just remember me and Gene plush you all the time.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, one of your more famous Christmas matches was in 1983 at the Omni, where you actually was defeated in a national heavyweight title loser leaves town match. Ted DiBiase defeated you, and then I believe that's when a fellow named Mr. R was showing up not very long after that, right?
The mysterious Mr. R.
Turned out he was Brad Armstrong.
Yeah, mysterious, though. Can't leave the mysterious. I like the
that's
mysterious.
true. That was the big key element. He was very mysterious.
Oh, yeah. But that was
figured out.
That was the craziest thing in the world, because I was about I don't know, 6 inches taller than Brad or what. But anyway, he had the same sweatsuit on and everything. And then people was, hey, I guarantee still today they promised that was me out there.
How was
and what was so?
Oh, Ted, he was great talent. Me and him, I draw good money with him in Georgia. I mean, very blessed that, just we hung out too. I mean, his wife, we knew him. We were pretty cool. Like, you get to meet a few guys that you get close to, which I don't talk to him no more now. But back, when it was territories, you had your folks that you hung with and went to eat dinner with. Some you did, some you didn't. But, Ted was always cool with me, very nice. And hell, we draw money.
And Gene, I mean, Ted drew money. I think Ted drew money everywhere he went, didn't he? Basically, Ted was a great worker.
Louisiana, I mean, were you there in Louisiana? Wasn't you?
He just left.
Yeah.
He just left to go to Vince to be the $1 Million Man the year before I started.
Okay.
And everything, but I've been around him a lot, and he's always real nice. I mean, he was really nice to me because he really respected my dad. My dad helped him a lot, like when he started. He started with the Funks and everything,
yeah,
and I mean.
But Ted was that old school. Yeah, Ted was that old school too.
Yeah, and I mean, but he was good. He was smooth, and I mean. He was a good guy. Actually, me and my wife saw him at the airport, him and his wife, about last year, and I talked to him a little bit, and he was telling me stories about my dad and stuff, and I thought that was really cool.
And he's one of those guys that drew well as both a babyface and a heel at different times in his career, equally well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like Tommy starting out young and everything as far as just being a babyface for a good long time. I think when Teddy first started, he was just a babyface for a good long time.
Yeah.
So let's cover a couple of Christmas shows here with Doug. Let's jump ahead. Christmas of 1993 at the TV5 Studios, an episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. Dave Brown and Corey Macklin on the call. We had a tag team match with Doug and his brother Eddie. They've got Tony Adams in their corner. They defeated T.D. Steele and Tony Williams. I walked by a guy like 10 times in Jackson that I didn't know until later that night, right before it was over with, was Tony Williams. I had no idea it was him until like right before we left. Did you guys see Tony there in Jackson?
Man, I talked to him and told him I'd talked to him before we left, and then I didn't. And then the other day, I'd had his number before, but the number I tried to call wasn't the right number. But a guy gave me his phone number the other day, in which, me and Tommy stopped by Tony's house before, a few times and hung out. I really liked Tony. Tony was always a good dude and everything. Tony was Brian's first partners when Brian and Tony started as Nebula and Quasar and everything, and then they wound up being the New Kids, and then Brian went on to do his stuff and Tony done his, but Tony always really liked Tony, and we was friends, and we've always been friends and everything. But yeah, me and Tommy would stop by and hang out with Tony, and I really enjoyed, and like I said, Tony's always been a friend of mine.
Tony was a talented guy, and I always felt like he came along too soon, that if he would have came a few years later when height wasn't such a big deal, when smaller guys started getting used more, that he probably would have had a heck of a career, because he was really talented. It was just at that time they just weren't doing a lot with guys.
Well,
his height.
Yeah, he was a really, really good worker. Yeah.
Yeah, and he could.
Really good.
And I'm gonna tell you one of the things that people don't look at. Go look at some of his Power Pro stuff when he was Kid Wicked. That was cool gimmick, and it fit him good and everything. And I mean, but Tony was he had a good attitude. He didn't care. It didn't whatever you wanted him to do. He didn't care. He didn't have no ego. I mean, as far as whatever you needed. I mean, he kept his mouth shut. He listened. Anything. I mean, he was a good dude. He's still a good dude.
And then we jump ahead 4 years to 1997, Christmas Day, Music City Wrestling in Nashville, of course, for Mr. Burt Prentice. And Dangerous Doug Gilbert defeats Dirty Dutch Mantell by disqualification. A couple other big matches on that show. Street Fight, Rex King defeated Stephen Dunn. JC Ice defeats Terry Golden. Mo defeated Billy Travis. Wolfie D beats Flash Flanagan. How was it working with Dutch Mantell in '97, Doug?
Man, Dutch was always fine with me, and I mean, just going over that line. That sounds like a good card to me that Bert had there, and everything. But no, Dutch was always really good with me. Which you could watch a dozen different of Dutch's matches and kind of see what he liked to do and didn't like to do, or wasn't going to do, rather. But, I mean, I like Dutch. Dutch always worked hard, I mean, as far as with me. And, I mean, I think Tommy would probably say the same. And
no, I ain't going to say damn the same thing. He wouldn't let me out of the dressing room one night.
Oh, yeah. He held Tommy hostage one night. But other than that, I think Tommy would say he worked hard and everything. I was there. I seen him hold Tommy hostage that night and everything. I was a young kid. I wasn't sure what the hell was going on that night in the Nashville Fairgrounds in the dressing room. But Dutch made his stand. He stood up against the door and said, "Tommy, you're not leaving." And Tommy picked his bag up and looked at him and said, "You better get the hell out from in front of that door." And Dutch jumped out in front of the door pretty quick.
Well, but that goes back. That goes back, and it wasn't really Dutch's fault. I mean, he was. I guess
Dutch was booking.
But Pat Malone, nobody know who Pat Malone is, but he was a badass man back in the day. He was. They called him
the Red Shadow, wasn't it?
Green Shadow. That's right. He wrestled as Green Shadow. And Jerry Jarrett always told me, sign autographs. Anyway, Pat Malone sent me to the dressing room, and I wasn't going to argue with him. He was old and mean. And I went in the dressing room, and anyway, something was said. But anyway, that was, but no, as far as working and everything, that's really cool. But we did have one disagreement. I was getting out of that dressing room. But I was thinking I'd be in the lead, though. I knew that.
The funniest thing, though, I think Dutch was Jarrett was letting Dutch book a little bit at the time, Gene, and but Tommy and Eddie was in the main event against somebody in one of the programs. I think it was when they was working with PYT, probably with Coco and Norvell.
Yep.
And Dutch looked at Eddie after Tommy left, and Eddie just kind of shook his head, and Dutch said, "Well, I guess if they're going to be a Fabulous Ones team tonight, it'd have to be me and you on it." Eddie said, "If you want to be my partner, I guess it will be." But they didn't no longer than Tommy did no longer than get gone, and then the match was over, and they had Eddie over there, and where Miss Teeny used to sell the tickets at. There was a phone in that room, and Jerry Jarrett had Eddie on the phone. And told Eddie, said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "What do you mean, what's wrong?" He said, "What's wrong with Tommy?" And he told him kind of what happened about the, what Pat done, what Dutch did, and said, I don't blame Tommy. And Jerry Jarrett said, "Well, you just let him cool off tonight, and you call him in the morning and tell him everything's okay." And that was stuff like that. I mean, and everything was okay. Like I said, Tommy just needed to cool off and everything. And then the next day, it was right back to work.
Oh, yeah. Me and Dougie had a couple of them, too. So don't let him act like that was the only time. I mean, but in our minds, we were right. I still think to this day we were right. But, yeah. It just was the business, the nature of the business back then. You worked 7 days a week, and I was living in Atlanta, and sometimes you don't get to go home for a minute, and you get ready to go home, and then it don't take a lot to trigger you, And so, but anyway, yeah, that was mine and Dutch's run in. But I love Dutch. I mean, God bless him. I hope him and his family all's good.
Yeah, I know Dutch.
Yeah, but Gene, yeah, that's what they say. And I actually talked to him, and he texted me the other day. Gene's texted me a couple of times, and I thought that was cool. And I always text him something nice back. But he was always good to me, and I always respected, all of the guys that I thought deserved and earned respect and worked for me and drew money that I grew up watching. And I mean, Dutch was in a lot of programs and drew a lot of money around these areas.
Oh yeah, he did. Hey. And got a story. I mean, Dutch said that you can listen to stories all day. I mean, Dutch is cool. We had a bad day one time. Yeah, Dutch is cool.
There's a handful of guys when you say Memphis wrestling that spring to mind, and I think Dutch is one of them. The Gilberts are definitely, Tommy Rich, Jerry Lawler, Brian Christopher, and I think Dutch is in that mix most of the time. Austin Idol, some of those guys. But I got a chance to interview Dutch years ago, and man, he's just got so many stories. He's such a great storyteller and king of the one-liners, and really, really, really entertaining to talk to. And so I hope Dutch is moving towards getting better, and I'm glad you heard from him recently, Doug. But man, we've gone for a while here. I guess we better wrap this one up. But man, what a fun episode, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it. I hope it's served as somewhat of a Christmas present from your friends here at Dangerous Conversations.
Hey man, I want to send a special Christmas shout out to Lucille and everybody else, man. Y'all tune in. Lucille, I love you, baby. But Merry Christmas to you too, hon. But anyway, Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank y'all for following us, and it's been a blast, man.
Yeah, and like I said, Gene, myself, you, Tommy, we all want everybody to have a Merry Christmas. We appreciate y'all listening to us, taking time out of your day listening to us, riding down the road like I do when I listen to this podcast and everything. Like I said, rate, review, and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. If you want some merch, go to Gene's store, go to Pro Wrestling Tees, and you can get them either way and everything. Like I said, just remember, and like I said, we want everybody to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Peace. We're out.
Before we get out of here, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone, if you have an upcoming wrestling show, autograph signing, collector show, Comic-Con, or any event or booking that you would like to inquire about the services of Dangerous Doug Gilbert and or Tommy Wildfire Rich, just send us an email at douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible to get more information on your event and do the best we can to make that happen. Also, if you are interested in advertising your event, your business, your product to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations, as well as to promote your event, business, or product across all our social media platforms, you can send that inquiry to douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com. We would love to work together with you to get that out there to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations. Remember to check out douggilbertpodcast.com. There you can find links to all things related to this podcast, as well as Doug and Tommy themselves. You'll find a link to the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page and the Dangerous Conversations Twitter, now known as X. And we're always posting content daily, involving the Gilbert family, Tommy Rich, all sorts of things from their career. We got magazine articles, videos, pictures, you name it. We're posting new content every single day. Make sure you follow so you don't miss out on any of that. Plus, you can follow Doug and Tommy's personal Facebook pages on there. Dangerous Doug Gilbert. You can search that on Facebook. You can also search Tommy Wildfire Rich. They both have Facebook pages. And Doug does have an X page as well, and you can follow them there. But if you really want to help support, you can go to the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, which there's a link to there on the douggilbertpodcast.com. And you can find t-shirts of Doug, Eddie, and their famous father, Tommy Gilbert, as well. Also, Tommy Rich is going to be having some t-shirts coming up very soon. Follow him on Facebook. We'll be talking about him here. But look for some cool new Tommy Wildfire Rich t-shirts coming out soon that you can partake in as well. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on the platform of your choice. It would really help us in building up the podcast for the future. Plus, it helps us know what you like, what you don't like, where we need to take this podcast moving forward. Also, if you want to see a whole bunch of matches, promos, and angles, a lot of the ones that you're going to hear us talk about on this very podcast, you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@RetroWrestlingArchive. Of course, it's linked right there at douggilbertpodcast.com, and you will find a ton of matches featuring Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Gilbert, Doug Gilbert, Tommy Wildfire Rich. There's playlists of all them that feature hundreds of matches of each of them. So make sure you go check that out. And not just of them, there are thousands, literally, at this point, of videos from wrestling from across the territory days, you name it. If we don't have the video uploaded to our channel, we at least have organized you a playlist of just about every territory, every show that's out there. You can find it in one convenient location there on YouTube at the Retro Wrestling Archive. Plus, don't forget, you can find all things related to my popular Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast at uswapodcast.com. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com to check out all the great pro wrestling related podcasts and various content that our friend Ray Russell provides you. You'll be glad you did. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich.
In the heart of Tennessee, born with pride, Doug and Tommy taking rings in stride. Memphis legends never backing down, wrestling warriors, they wear the crown. USWA, glory in their veins, fighting legends breaking chains. In the squared circle they made their name. Podcast champions, it's their claim to fame. On the mic they rode, on the map they soared. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage. From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, crowd. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more.